Hello students, greetings to everyone, and today in this video we are going to start off with chapter 5, that is the Happy Prince. Okay, so before we move on with the chapter, let us quickly see what lies in here. The Happy Prince was a beautiful statue. He was covered with gold, he had sapphires for eyes and ruby in his sword. Why did he want to part with all the gold that he had and his precious stones? So this is the question that you should be able to answer once you are through with the chapter. That why did this statue wanted to part with all the gold and all the precious stones that it had. Okay. So high above the city on a tall column stood the statue of a happy prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For his eyes he had two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword's hilt. Now, so high above the city on a tall column. Now we'll shift a bit down. So now this thing that you see, this one, this structure, that is known as a column. Okay, so this column, or I would rather say a pillar. Okay, so there was this column, and on the top of the column there was a statue of a happy prince. Okay, and this statue was covered with gold, or with thin leaves of fine gold, and his eyes were made up of two bright sapphires. Sapphires are the precious stones. It's a precious stone, and a large red ruby, again is a precious stone, glowed on his sword's hilt. Sword's hilt means, look at the picture down here, this part is the sword's hilt, where you hold the sword from. That is known as the hilt of the sword. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. Swallow is the name of it, is a bird, is a kind of a bird. His friends had gone, is a migratory bird. His friends had gone to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt. So this bird was in group, was a member of a group, but all the friends of the group, all the members of the group had already left for Egypt, whereas this bird was left behind. So now the bird decided to flew off to Egypt. Okay, so all day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city. So this bird flew all day, and at the night time the bird arrived at the city. Where shall I put up? He said. I hope the town has made preparations. So the bird thought to itself that where to put it, where to hold up for the night, and he thought that the town has made some preparations. Then this bird saw the statue of a tall column. So now let us quickly remember that this, naturally we use it for an animal or a bird or whatsoever. We use it. But over here the writer has used he. That means he has personified bird, okay, as a human. So therefore he has personified the bird, because he has been using he for the bird. Okay, now so there was a statue on the tall column. So this bird, when it entered the city, saw the statue which was on a tall column. So I will put up there. So the bird thought that, now I got a nice place for me to spend the night. This I'll put up there. It's a fine position with plenty of fresh air. With plenty of fresh air means with enough of fresh air. This is a very good place for enough of fresh air. So he alighted, means adjusted, or with the support. So he adjusted with the support of the 2 feet, or between the 2 feet of the happy prince. So he quickly made himself comfortable. So the bird made himself comfortable between the 2 feet of the happy prince. Okay. So there is this statue which is made up of gold, which has eyes made up of ruby, and then there is this bird, probably migrating to Egypt, was flying up the entire day, and at the night, in order to seek rest, it took the place between the statue's feet. I have a golden bedroom, he said. Now why is the bird saying that I have a golden bedroom? Because the statue was made up of gold. He said softly to himself as he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep, but just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. Now, as this bird was preparing to sleep, so as he was about to sleep, as the bird was about to sleep, so a large drop of water fell on the bird. And what a curious thing, he cried, because there was not a single cloud in the sky, and the stars were bright and clear. So he kind of felt surprised that how come it started raining, provided the sky is completely very clear. Then the other drop fell. Then after the one drop, then the second drop fell. What is the use of the statue if it cannot keep the rain off? So the bird was thinking to itself that what is the use of statue if it cannot keep the rain off? I'll probably migrate. I'll probably go and look for a chimney pot. And he was determined to fly away. He was all set to fly away. So before he had opened his wings, the third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. What did he see? So now, ultimately, what happened? The first drop fell, then the second drop fell, and the third drop fell. So by default, the bird had assumed that it started raining, and it had to look for some other shelter. But once the bird looked up, what did it saw? It saw that the eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears. So the statue had teary eyes. Again, this statue is personified as human. The figure of speech used here is personification, because the statue is personified as human, because naturally a statue cannot cry, but the writer has given the qualities of a human to the statue. Okay, and what happened after that? So the eyes were filled with tears, and the tears were rolling down his golden cheeks, because it was plated with gold. So his face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with sympathy, was filled with pity. "Who are you?" he said. "I am happy prince." "Why are you weeping then?" asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. Quite drenched me means you have made me wet. Drenched means soaked in water. Drenched means soaked in water. So the prince says, "When I was alive and had a human heart," answered the statue, "I did not know what tears were." So as he was a prince, naturally he was far away from all the miseries of the world. He was miles and miles away from all the problems of the world. He had no idea what tears were. He had no idea what starvation was. He had no idea what other miseries of the world were. He was having his ball of a time in his huge palace. So he says that I used to live in a palace where sorrow was not allowed. My courtiers called me the happy prince. My courtiers used to call me the happy prince, and indeed I was a happy prince. So I lived, and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up high here, so high that I can see the ugliness and all the miseries of my city. And though my heart is made up of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. So he's saying that now they placed me up so high that I can see the misery or the problems of each and every man or woman living in my city. The problems and the miseries of the people of my town are not hidden from me anymore. And as I'm a statue, as I've been tied to this pedestal, as I've been fastened to this pedestal, all I can do is just weep. Just weep means all I can do is just cry, and I have no other option. What is it not solid gold? Now when he says that my heart is made up of lead, then this bird tries to act a bit funny, and it says, "What? I thought you are made up of I thought you made up of gold, but you said it's lead. That means you are not entirely made up of gold." But this prince was too polite to answer this question. Okay, so anyways, we'll stop over here. We'll continue the next part in the second video. Till then, go through the video very nicely, and we'll meet tomorrow in the online class.